Charity's a hard luck girl, I think. She's very sweet, hence the title Sweet Charity. And I think that stays with her through the whole play. The sweetness, the innocence. Although she's streetwise, she's a dance hall hostess. She has to be. She's different than the other girls in that sense, in that innocence that she holds in her heart. She's searching for a true love. She finds herself in that search, I believe, that she's okay. She's deeper than I realized when I started doing her. There's a beautiful unfolding of her throughout the play, which, God, I hope I can convey to the audience, because it's difficult. And it's a subtle unfolding, and I'm struggling with it. But that's who she is, I think. That's who I think she is. I'm Barbara Lynn. I'm playing the role of Charity Hope Valentine in Sweet Charity. Oh, I was 30 years old before I did anything. When I was so shy as a child, if you said boo to me, I would have cried. And I'm still shy. I'm a shy person. And my good friends know that. But some people, it depends on what context they see me in, would say, Barb, shy? No way. I've always been shy. It's kind of just a weird thing how I got involved in it, and I was 30 years old. I've always been an artist. I've always been creative, and I was in night school trying to finish my 2-year degree in art, and I had to take one more elective after speech. Speech and algebra were my last classes. I waited and waited to take those because I thought they'd be awful, and I liked speech. So I had an elective to take, and my counselor said, take drama, because it'll apply towards a bachelor's degree. So I took drama, and I loved it. And I was 30 years old, and it was my birthday, and I sat down on my couch, and I thought, this is a milestone in my life. I'm turning 30. What do I really want to do? And I was single, and I had a lot of time on my hands, and I was independent financially, and I could have done anything, you know. And I really gave it some gut feelings, and I wrote down some really crazy stuff. Like, I want to sing in a band, be a rock star. I want to be in a play. I want to sing in front of people. Things like that you wouldn't tell your best friend. And I went down the list and started doing them. I just felt uninhibited. I don't know, I guess I freed myself. And I'm still shy, though, with some people, or in certain circumstances. But when I get on stage, if I'm in a character, I'm not afraid. That's sometimes why I do a character when I do stand-up. I hide behind it, because I'm shy. The first lead I had in a musical was Fiona in Brigadoon out at the fairgrounds. She was a Scottish lass from the Highlands, and she was very sweet, very demure, very quiet. It was a perfect first role for me because I was scared to death. I played Nancy and Oliver. I played Babe in Pajama Game. I played Annie Oakley in Annie Get Your Gun. That was my favorite. That was my favorite part. Not because of the Ellie, just because she was such a character like Charity. Babe in Pajama Game was not a character. Nancy was on the border. I like character roles like that that are really strong. Not strong in the sense independent, strong women, but the characters, you can really get into them, and they're hilarious. I like doing comedy. This is very funny. I was unemployed last year for 2 months straight. I got a job, I think for about half what I was making, and I was miserable. And one of my girlfriends from my old job called me at my new job and said, they're auditioning stand-up comics at the Holbrook tonight. Come down. I said, are you kidding? I have no material. I can't do that. That's awful. I can't do that. She says, she hired me and all I told was a joke. And I said, oh, you got to be kidding. And she said, no, just come down and talk to her. So I went down all day at work. I thought about just tell a funny story, tell a funny story. I thought of a funny story. I went down, I told the funny story, and she loved it. She hired me, and I went home and I wrote material, and my job, my day job had ended, and it was the only thing that got me up in the morning. I mean, I was so depressed. I'd gone through 2 jobs within 6 months, and there was no reason to get up. And that job got me up out of bed, and the first thing I did was grab a cup of coffee and start writing funny things down. And you'd be amazed how your life changes when you look at things as being funny. You know, everything. Where can I find something funny today? My whole outlook changed, and I didn't get depressed, and I was out of work, and it was a job, and I wrote new material every week for a month. And it was a challenge. I enjoyed it. I got better at it, and now I'm comfortable with it. I decided if I ever have a kid, I'm gonna have it really quick and neat. I'm gonna have it Heimlich. I won't even need drugs till the kid's 2 years old. I don't know if it's because it's a musical, but the subtext of this show has been so deep, so much deeper than the lines are. The lines are so fluttery and happy and light when Charity's going through this major change in herself. And that is difficult to portray to the audience, and I'm still struggling with it. The character herself is tough to do. I've bounced back from sweet, happy, nice to almost just stupid, you know, and I don't want to be stupid. There's a fine tuning in there I need to get, and it's coming, but it's coming so late, you know. It is like I'm scared, but I know she's there. And I'd like to do some more mental work alone with myself about Charity. And what I usually do is I do a autobiography of Charity and make it up. And I go back to when she was born. Where? Who were her parents? Where'd she grow up? What's her favorite color? Who's her best friend? What's the worst thing she ever did? What's the best thing she ever did? What are her dreams or hopes? Every little detail if I can. And I just do it in my mind, and I make her a real person. And that usually comes the last couple weeks before we open. We had a lot of technical stuff to work out, so I missed out on developing her because it was stop, start, stop, start. And I'm not blaming anyone for that. I'm just saying that's what's happened, and now it's who's Charity? Who is she? Who is she? Who is she? Constant. I know my lines. I know my blocking. I know my dance. Who's Charity? Who's Charity? It's always the last thing with me, and I wish it could be the first thing, but everything else is so technical it can't be there. She's nuts about Charlie. She's absolutely insanely nuts about him. She knows he's not the guy, but that's all she's ever had is a Charlie who could give a about her, you know? Really doesn't care about her. But that's all she's ever had. But he's gorgeous, and she's infatuated with him. He's beautiful. Victoria, oh man. It's like going to Disneyland for the first time when she sees him, you know, as a child. Going to Disneyland as a child. her heart's racing, her blood's pumping. She can't believe he actually touched her. He's a movie star. And to Charity, he's maybe not a real person at first, you know, because we put movie stars on pedestals. They're not real people. And that's her immature side, I think, is, you know, this is a god. And she plays with them. She plays with Vittorio, and she's right there in the moment. Oscar, he's reachable. For Charity, he's reachable. He's a nice guy. He's a husband, you know. And I think she falls in love with that ideal. You know, the nice guy syndrome. And then later finds out that he actually is kind of quirky. He's got some neuroses. Even though she doesn't know what that means, she says, yeah, there's a lot of that going around. She really sees it in the end, that he's quirky. He's got some garbage to work out in his life. You know? She doesn't want that. Nikki and Helene, they're best buds. They've gone through hell together. And they're different than Charity. They're hard. They're harder core. They're more wise, I think, streetwise too, than she is. They're not so innocent. But she looks up to them because they've stuck it out, you know. They've gotten through they've waded through all the mud. And I think she looks up to them. I think they take care of her too, psychologically. I think they might even baby her a little bit. Even though they poke fun of her and don't believe anything she says, I think Nikki especially has a little mothering, nurturing towards Charity when she says things like, now look, I wouldn't tell you this, and you know I'm a nice person, but you're a stupid broad. You know, that kind of, it's a nurturing, but it's got a hard edge to it. I think Helene's kind of more in the background sometimes, watching all this. She's a quieter, you know, version of Nikki. The men she dances with. She can't stand them. I think it's a job. And when they get fresh with her, she says, up yours. You know, she handles herself. She takes care of herself. I think she's got probably a real bitterness inside of her when she's dancing with them. Herman, she likes Herman. She's okay. She's not afraid of him. She likes him. I think he holds it together at the club, you know. And if anything ever really bad happened, he'd be there. He'd protect her. She actually likes Herman. Although, I think she makes fun of him behind his back. I'm getting really tired of musicals, but I love to sing. But I think one of the reasons I was getting tired of them was because I didn't feel like they were deep enough. And I really want to act. And I would like to do some serious drama. But I've also talked to Chris, who on the other hand has done serious drama, and I always thought musicals were for floofy people that had no real talent, when actually Charity is deep. She's a deep character, and I might just probably didn't have that insight before, and now I realize that some musicals, some characters like Charity can be deep, and I can act. But I really do want to try some theater that's not comedy musical. I'd like to do some serious stuff, some drama. I've never done it, and I know I could do it. So that's where I'm at right now. I don't know, there's more musicals in the area though. There's more funny stuff. A lot of people don't want to go to a theater and see a heavy drama. And a lot of the groups up here, I think, don't do it because of that fact. So there's more silly, happy, I feel a song coming on stuff. you know, which it takes you away. But I'm in between. I still like making people laugh. I just get a kick out of it. I think it's fun. Chris is wonderful. Every time I'm on stage with him, I feel blessed for several reasons. One, he's a serious actor, and I don't mean serious in the sense that he doesn't laugh, because he laughs a lot. He's very into his work. He's a professional. Every chance he gets, we work together on our scenes, and he's determined to make this show good, and our scenes especially tight. And he's also made it a point to become my friend outside of the show, which is very important in a lot of ways, because we didn't know each other at all. When we were cast, he was a total stranger, and it's hard to work with strangers on stage. I think you need to be friends. You need to know how to communicate so that you can communicate on stage if you have to, which you do during the whole show. You know, it's just you're in character. And we've spent a lot of time outside of rehearsals, not only working on the show and talking about our feelings about the show, helping each other with our characters, talking about each other as people, as Barbara and Chris, instead of Charity and Oscar or Charity and Vittorio, which is important. And I'm going to miss him when the show's over, I think. I'm not going to see him a lot. And I love Chris. He's wonderful. He's one of my friends now.
I got two names in this show. So if you were to ask me, you know, who am I and what do I play, I would have to say I am two people because I play two people. Christopher Prince plays Vittorio Vidal. Chris Beale plays Oscar, the nerdy love interest. Of course, Vittorio is a much more exciting role because he's very handsome and he's very romantic. And he even likes Charity, which is always a plus to like the girl. People like a handle. And Chris Beale is sort of what I turned into commercially about 6 or 7 years ago. Just Chris Beale. Christopher is a little too stagey for the commercial world. And they go, who was that guy? Christopher Beale? No, but they go, who was that guy? Chris Beale. So, if I was in Ashland playing Shakespeare, it would have to be Christopher Prince Beale, my full name. After developing a theater troupe in the Bay Area and doing stage theater with them, and we were a comedy troupe called I Fratelli Bologna. We even created a holiday in the city of San Francisco, basically as a PR move, but it ended up being a holiday, and I still never made a stinking penny off it. In fact, I spent more money putting up the shows, making my costumes, you know, paying the directors and the technicians than I ever made a penny. And I'm afraid I arrived at a conclusion when I was like maybe 33, like about 10 years ago, that if I don't start making some money here, I'm just gonna, you know, be a counter person, and I won't be, you know, anybody else. I'll be a counter person who does a little theater once in a while, you know, when they can, you know, get rested up enough from the 55-hour week, you know. Chris, killer coffee.
It's good.
It's good. It's very, very good.
Have you considered marketing it?
Well, I was, you know, don't give up your day job. I've been pushing coffee and espresso and whipping up lattes for years in my day job.
Mm-hmm.
So I refused to be a waiter, so I became a counter person.
A counter person?
A counter person, yes. I didn't want to go the waiter route.
I didn't realize you came from the counterculture.
Well, yes, in fact, you really want to go back into my history, I'm more of a counterculturalist. I'm a preppy. Preppies don't become actors. That's highly inappropriate. You're supposed to be a businessman, you know, a broker, a dilettante.
But instead you chose to be Dylan Thomas. No, that's not...
No, I'd like to play Dylan Thomas. I don't want to.
I'll drink to that.
Oh, excuse me. Must have been something I ate.
That is killer coffee.
Oh, this stuff's good. Brings in the pterodactyls, you know. So I became an auditioner. Good. Luckily enough, there are talent agencies in San Francisco that wanted me. I've got this nice sort of a young dad, well, not a young dad anymore, but I started with a nice young dad look, and I auditioned like crazy for industrial roles, commercial roles, insurance companies, banks, this, that, and the other thing. I would look pretty good in a suit, and had a nice sort of a relaxed attitude. I had to learn how to be small because my training was in theater. I had to learn how to really calm down and learn the classic Paul Newman 3-blink scene. Genius. And what the funny thing about the industry is that you're lucky if you get a job out of maybe 20 auditions. You would be very lucky. Your percentage would be good if you would take 20 auditions and get one job, because the jobs pay very well. So basically what you end up doing is you end up taking auditions, taking callbacks, 10% of people take the audition going to get a callback, 2-3% of the callbacks, they get a callback, I like to say. And then you get the job. Well, the job usually shoots for maybe a day or two, or maybe a couple of hours. One of my most lucrative commercials, a Travelers Insurance that's running right now, I shot in 2 hours. I have been, raking in thousands of dollars with this silly commercial that I worked on for 2 hours. And the thing took 15 seconds to shoot. So I spend much more time auditioning than I do doing theater. It's, well, that's life, I guess, but, it pays the bills. It was funny. I was trying to do some extra work in San Francisco to get in front of a camera or to see what happens in front of the camera, because I had no camera experience. And I started meeting a bunch of guys, local actors in San Francisco. In San Francisco, they don't have this attitude about the extras that they do in LA. In San Francisco, the extras are actors in many cases, stage and theater actors. And so I met a few boys and got to be pals with some of these guys, and then they invited me to join them in a group at the Renaissance Fair called Familia Bologna. And so we kind of did this Familia Bologna thing for a couple of summers, and then we had a bust-off group called the Bully Boys off of Familia Bologna, and then reformed with a couple of Familia other boys, and ended up with a 7-man Commedia dell'arte troupe called I Fratelli Bologna, the Bologna Brothers. Okay? Then I Fratelli Bologna got the right stuff, and then we started putting on our own shows, and became very much involved in the new vaudeville movement that took place in the early and mid-'80s. Early mid-'80s. I think Bill Irwin probably the most successful member of that troupe, and I'm so terrible with names. There were 2 or 3 other groups, Duck's Breath and a couple of other groups, sometimes involving juggling and sleight of hand, sleight of face, sleight of fall on your face, and very active physical comedy stuff, and I enjoyed that a lot. And I think we were the hottest show in town in our day, because we went from playing ourselves to playing our own girlfriends to like running off as the bad Commedia boys, running back on as the good Commedia boys, and then doing the final big number on stilts 10 feet tall. I mean, this is stuff you just can't run across on a daily basis. This was and then we started after the group broke down a little bit, and I went my way and a couple of boys went the other way. The remaining 5 members would do imitations of themselves, all wrapped up in bandages and on crutches and stuff. Because I'm telling you, it's a tough biz. So they were parodying their own ability as the fabulous flying Flippy brothers, all busted up, and we were all busted up, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's a tough routine. Even though we worked with pads under us and elbow pads and hiding the pads as much as you could, when you're doing 3 highs and bad 3 highs, you're bound to hit the dirt. One of our routines was to put together our 3 high with 2 guys like this and 2 guys on them, and then 2 guys being hung off like that, and put it all together, and then turn to the audience and go, "The Golden Gate Bridge!" It was silly stuff. It was silly. It was a lot of fun. But as I said, I was going broke doing that, and the boys club can only go so far. I got married, and I had to go get a life. We knew we were going to get auditioned by Lynn Stallmaster, and what we figured was we were always writing our own material, because that's all we did. We'd improv and we wrote our own material. And so we say to ourselves, all right, we're going to go into this audition. We're all going to be press corps members, and we're going to have these questions. You're going to have this question, you know, how old were you when you did this? You know, what made you get into a thing? Were you a jet jockey, you know, for life? You know, you like fighter planes better than sports cars? And we all had these dumb questions, you know, and we were all going to ask them to John Glenn. So we walked into the audition at Zoetrope in San Francisco, in fact. And we walked in the audition, and instantly we threw up a 7-high pyramid for Phil. You know, just to show that we can do this kind of stuff, you know. Whooped up, you know, everybody did the old pyramid, and then, you know, busted underneath and collapsed in a heap, and then leapt up to our feet, and Stallmaster says, I tell you what, you guys, I'm going to be John Glenn, and you ask us some questions. So he barely got out of his mouth before we instantly, you know, whipped out our pads and pencils, you know, put on our hats with the press signs, and started going, you know, Mr. Glenn, what kind of an astronaut do you, how do you spell astronaut? Do you know what an astronaut is? You know, can your wife cook? Do any of you attend church regularly? You know, and we all gave him these lines like that, and it was like we were a shoo-in. But Kaufman wanted to hire the group as a group because he wanted that feeling, because there were 7 astronauts. And we were a together 7-man physical comedy troupe, and he wanted us to indicate to those astronauts the kind of ensemble behavior that he wanted out of them. So he used us all through the show to show the astronauts what it's like to be an ensemble group, and that we move together, we back each other up, you know, we're aware of the other guy all the time, and we hope, and I think it did, rub off on the astronauts, and you do have that feeling of camaraderie in the film, The Right Stuff. And without blowing our horn too much, I think we can take some credit for that. And it was all through the eyes of Phil. It was very good. I did a movie end of last year, should be coming out momentarily. I've been so busy with this, I haven't called the production company or called my fellow actors. It was starring Holly Hunter, who's a very little person and very sweet, and Sigourney Weaver, who's a very tall person and kind of mean. And interestingly enough, Sigourney Weaver married Jim Simpson, who was a college buddy of mine back at Boston University, when they both went off to Yale and looked it up. So Jimmy's done good by himself, I guess. I was a crime scene investigator. Tony, the crime scene investigator. I worked on this for 2 weeks. That was great. That was like joy, joy, joy. And a number of scenes with Holly Hunter standing around carved up bodies and wisecracking. So it was it was kind of a typecasting, I think. I stand around and wisecrack pretty good for most folks, I guess. For instance, the stiff has been in the bathtub for a couple hours, and the phone rings, and Holly says, you know, somebody answer the phone, and I turn to her and I say, tell them madam's in the tub. She says, will you shut up? Who does your material? She's a cute little person, Holly. Very, very unassuming actress she is, too. Evidently she's very largely self-trained. I mean, raised her children in the woods in South Carolina or something. She's really a fascinating person and a complete sweetheart, totally unassuming. Sat down and ate lunch with the extras. All the extras were going, the stars never sit with us. He was going, really? Why not? Loved her. Just to get back on the stage again, to do a scene that takes time, to do a character development that you know, isn't over in 15 seconds, to act again. I haven't done it for 10 years, and it is my first love. I always love to say I have 2 loves in life, theater and food. Well, the food industry got me behind the counter, making a few bucks, but the theater industry, it's, you know, I'm one of these characters. It's in my soul. It's in my my need for life, and this is fulfilling, you know, part of that need. Nicely, in a wonderful surrounding. The character of Vittorio Vidal, he's sort of a kind of a walk-on in Charity's life. He literally bumps into her and grabs her off the street in order to make his girlfriend jealous. And strangely enough, ends up liking her and having a wonderful time with her. And she ends up throwing herself in the closet to save him for his girlfriend, and he doesn't even do that to her. I don't think Vittorio ever would have put her in the closet, but she ends up in the closet, and Vittorio ends up in the bedstead with the lovely Ursula. You see the whole relationship, really, which is what's kind of neat. There is no previous relationship with them, and so he originally grabs her to use her, just to kind of, use her against Ursula, his girlfriend, who's giving him a hard time, and he discovers how wonderful she is. So the bulk of the role is discovering Charity, along with the audience, really, because it's fairly early in the play. So he's discovering her, and he just starts to get more and more interested, because she says these silly things, these wonderful, silly, fun things. And that's Charity, and he likes her. So that's, I think the audience almost thinks as they go through the show, oh, gee, if only she'd stayed with Vittorio. Oscar is a much more complicated character than Vittorio. Not that Vittorio is one level, but Oscar, he's basically a neurotic. He's a nice guy who's kind of afraid of girls, very much unlike Vittorio. He's sort of afraid of girls. In fact, Oscar's afraid of life. Oscar's basically afraid of everything. And Charity is so wonderful to him and gives him a sense of confidence about himself. So he and builds him up like that. And for some strange reason, Oscar is his own fall guy. Somehow he just kind of falls apart in the end of the show. I think because it was too good. Charity is just too good for him. And he passes it off as a fixation with Purity, knowing that she has had a few lovers. How many? How many? Says Joe. I want to know exactly how many, when he finally flips his stinking lid. And he's a very complicated guy because he has so many little neuroses, and then he kind of keeps making a little comeback. Well, gee, maybe Oscar is a nice guy, maybe he's not this wacko, But then he really screws it up in the end. But he has a good final line. His escape line is pretty funny. I won't give it away.
Will you sell it?
I think that's illegal.
Oh, okay.
We've already bought it. Oscar, he really does. I think he falls in love with Charity. He does, or at least he tries to convince himself that he can love her. With a little bit of that neurotic behavior going. So he does love her. He feels so comfortable with her. And that's due to her, really, much more her than him, because she is a very comfortable person. She's, in this opening scene, stuck in the elevator, she's clutching him to her breast. And whether Oscar's going back to mama, or whether we just like as a sex to be clutched to the breast, I don't know. But she does this to him, and in a motherly, nurturing way. He needs that nurturing, and he enjoys that. He has a fine, apparently a fine relationship with her until he flips his lid over her past lovers. So it's a love. He loves her. He says he loves her, but as we know, to Vittorio, she's like sort of a pal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost like a relative. It's like she hides herself in order to not to mess up his life and this kind of thing. And with Oscar, it's Mother. Have you noticed that I don't do much dancing? So, I was very happy to find out that I don't do much dancing. I'm more of a jock. I was a three-contact sport man, lacrosse, football, and hockey, and I tend to do all of my moves with my feet spread apart and kind of get low. And this is not a dancing behavior generally, but it is my first in the singing and dancing department, and the singing is fun because I had a really snotty view of singers and dancers in my early years of theater. I kind of thought that they were really just silly. How can you call that acting when you're walking around singing, and then stop singing and dance a little bit, and then talk to somebody? I mean that's not life. My theater training was serious stuff. A little Genet, a little Brecht, and you stop and you look people in the eye and you live for the moment. How can you live for a moment when you're singing it? Well, that's the challenge. And I've had a great deal of respect in the last few years, like 10 or so years, seeing how people pull it off. It's very impressive when someone can sing and then do lines and then sing and bring you emotionally in with them. That's very impressive to me. I don't think it's easy at all. I think it's very difficult. So I'm giving that a shot as part of what should be the complete actor's package, and am learning a lot about it. It's difficult and very exciting and emotional. You know, I get very emotional singing these songs, and that's the way you have to do it. You have to be in the song just as much as any other character is in a role, and you're in the song and you're there with the song, and that will read, and that is what will make the song work. It's interesting. I think really most actors are afraid of really getting it out there and doing it. They're all wonderful stories about, you know, how people fart for 10 minutes before they get on stage, or these kinds of things. I don't act like that, but I have a real paranoia that I will honestly walk out on stage and will not know my first 2 lines. And I've always had that fear. And at times I even have done so much as write my first 2 lines out and look at them, so that when I walk out on stage, I'll remember those 2 lines, you know. Because, you know, I mean, I do the thing, I get all palpitating, and I'm sweating, and, you know, and once I get past the first 2 lines, you know, I'm like a pig in poop. I'm having a fine time. But, you know, that's, yeah, there's a little of that, definitely, and every night. And I think there should be, because that gets your energy up, that gets you ready. I've never met any of these people before, and we have such a short period of time to get to know each other, and even though I am getting very much to know Barbara and appreciate Barbara as Barbara and what a wonderful person she is, I kind of get that character thing in to call her Charity. I mean, I don't know, does that seem that strange, really? Because I have more fun playing Vittorio, but I almost, this isn't going to sound right, but it's kind of true, I almost identify more with Oscar. And so Oscar calls her Charity and thinks more of her, because like I say, Oscar's in love with Charity, you know, really. And so I kind of like to have that relationship and develop that relationship with Charity. You know, it helps me, yeah. So I'm a little neurotic too. First thing I had to do was to get to know her, and the more I got to know her, you know, come on over to my place, you know, we'll have a little lunch, we'll talk about the things. The more I got to know her, the more I appreciated Karen's casting of her. She really has just naturally a lot of the charity qualities of openness and enjoyment of life, and so really, in fact, Barbara and I are getting to be you know, good buddies. We're getting to be palsy, and I think honestly close. And I hope we can carry on that relationship. It's fun. It's very nice. Yeah, she is a sweetheart.
I think happiness is fulfilling your dreams, no matter how outrageous they can be sometimes. And I think within that happiness and life is creativity. And I think if anybody out there is not happy, just do something creative. And it doesn't have to be theater or drawing like I do. It can be wood shop, and if you look around you, everybody's creating something. And I think creating something is living. I think it's life, and I think it can make anybody happy, just doing that.
Well, is there anything you'd like to add before your next interview?
Yeah, anybody got any more coffee?